Donald Trump rallied supporters in Vegas over the weekend, promising to eliminate taxes on tips for hospitality workers, while also going after the teleprompter operator, complaining about the heat, and criticizing the southern border when he killed the bipartisan border deal.
He just came up. Are the teleprompters not working, sir? Not even a little bit. Great job. And then I don't pay the company that does it, right? And then I end up with a story Trump doesn't pay. I don't pay contractors that do a job. And that's a job. That's a job. It's 110, but it doesn't feel it to me, right? Everybody was so worried yesterday about you, and they never mentioned me. I'm up here sweating like a dog. Secret Service said, we have to make sure everyone's safe. I said, what about me? Oh, we never thought of that. They don't think about me. You feel the breeze? Because I don't want anybody going on me. We need every voter. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care. This is the worst border in the history of the world. There's never been. No third world country has a border like that. And no third, I'll tell you what, and I hope the military revolts at the voting booth.
Joining us now, CEO of the Nevada Independent and MSNBC political analyst, Jon Ralston. So, John, that was a lot of what he said yesterday. Is it landing? How's his support in Nevada? Does he have a chance of taking it back?
Well, first of all, Katie, you missed the most important part about when he talked about sharks and boats.
No, I did not. Don't jump the gun. I'm going to play that in a second.
Oh, okay,
Hold your horses.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Answer my first question first.
I should have known, Katie. I apologize deeply. Listen, you know, the speech didn't move the needle, I don't think, that much. The thing that he had proposed about tips and taxation, there was an obvious pander to the culinary union. And the most interesting thing to me about the speech, Katie, is that he promised earlier to endorse someone for the U.S. Senate and then didn't do it until he was away and did it on Truth Social later, mostly because I think he either forgot about it in the heat or because the guy that he endorsed against is supported by a billionaire Las Vegas businessman whom Trump has courted and who did a fundraiser for Trump the night before. But the fact is, you know, he is ahead in the polls here, Katie, but you and I have talked many, many times in the past about this. Polls in Nevada are not great in October. Think of how good they are right now in June.
Yeah, okay, so what's your sense on the ground? I mean, let's take the polls out of it. You talk to people every day, you live there. Do you feel like it's different this time?
I do, and I feel that way, not just from people that I talk to, who I see shifting a little bit, either away from Joe Biden or into the undecided category, but by the very, very smart Democrats I talk to who are responsible for the so-called Reid machine and the turnout effort here, who are quite concerned about young voters and about Hispanic voters here in Nevada, and concerned about what the Biden campaign nationally is doing here to court those voters. Yeah, there's a long time to go. But remember, Katie, no Republican has won Nevada since 2004, but the last two elections here have been very, very close, about 2.5 points. And the Democratic margin in voter registration has become essentially nothing.
Okay. All right. Now, you jumped the gun here. You jumped the shark here. So let's play it. Let's play the bit about sharks.
By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy. He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards. Or here, do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking? Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, you know, nobody's ever asked me that question.
All right, so does the Biden team come in and start talking about sharks in order to get voters? What is the issue that the Biden team is losing on right now in Nevada?
Well, shark attacks are obviously a big issue in the desert out here, Katie. So I'm sure
Land
they will
shark.
try to explain. I didn't understand what he was talking about when I was watching, and I still don't, even after you played it again. Nobody's ever asked that question before. He said, yeah, I bet no one has ever asked that question before. But that is just typical of a Trump speech in the sense that he goes into these wild digressions and tangents and just tries to entertain the crowd. But even if you were watching during that, Katie, his very ardent supporters behind him seemed to have no clue what he was talking about. But this is all noise, right? Katie, you and I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 months or so to move the needle either way in this state or in the half dozen or so states that matter in the Electoral College. But something more than sharks is going to move voters here.
Here's
in
the thing,
Nevada.
and I experienced this in real time, and I'll just warn everybody again. Sometimes the things that he says on the rally stage will sound awful out from the outside perspective. How could the crowd not like that? He doesn't get any reaction. But when you're there, he would talk about how he hated crying babies, and people laughed in the crowd. But when you play it on television, oh, of course he's going to lose support for that. So it just plays differently in the crowd. John Ralston. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.